Yes, I've noticed. Oh, okay.
Hello, everybody. Hello, you're very welcome. I'm here with Liene Burbeck, who is an amazing writer who is launching her new book soon. So I was completely fascinated by Liene. She spent a year in South America, and part of that was researching this novel set in Amazonia. Lena's background is as an artist and returned to her first love of writing for this book. So I want to ask you some questions, Lena. I hope you're ready. I want to ask
I
you
hope
some
so.
questions, and I'm going to start with the themes in your book. What are the themes in your book? Without giving away the story, what are the themes in your book?
Yeah. Well, as you've already said, I've spent time in Amazonia, and so this is set in Brazil, in South America, and it's a story about a an Amazonian girl, a teenage girl, and her mission is to save the Amazonian rainforest and its inhabitants from destruction. She is being hunted by evil spirits, entities who want to stop her from saving the forest. She has to battle deadly jungle creatures, crocodiles, gigantic spiders, and monstrous ghouls. And she is captured by a tribe of Amazonian Indians and held prisoner, and she must escape because her time to save the forest is limited. So the themes that run through the book with this story are, of course, themes of courage and resilience and determination, and the the meaning of freedom is actually explored too. The power of her mind, the power of the human mind, is very strong through it. Inner strength and belief in oneself and what that can do, and of course the fundamental and overriding theme, which is the logging and the destruction of the rainforest, and the power of the mind to stop that. So they're the sorts of things that she's battling with. Mm.
Excellent. Really interesting themes about all of that. So the second question is, so what inspired you to write this book?
Well, I love jungles, I love wild places, and I love the challenge of surviving in the wild. And I traveled, well, I've spent, yes, almost a year in South America, but in Amazonia itself, I've spent 3 months. And I basically traveled the length of the Amazon, from the east coast, from Belém, where it's the mouth of the Amazon empties into the ocean, back to the west towards the Andes. And oh, when I think about it, the experiences that I had were just amazing. One that most often and immediately comes to mind is a time when it was the wet season, and I was at a camp for about a week or 10 days, near the banks of the Amazon. During the wet season, the river rises up to 3 meters, and I was staying at the camp, but we, a, a few of us, wanted to go out and uh, try to find caiman crocodiles, search for caiman crocodiles. We had an Indian guide. We went out in a little dinghy at night, and the trees are half submerged, just their branches sticking out as though they're calling out for help. And we were winding our way along around these branches, our guide scanning the shore with his torch for yellow gleaming eyes. And I began to worry. I thought, what on earth are we going to do if we find a large black caiman, which can be quite aggressive? And while I was worrying, he did find some gleaming yellow eyes. And fortunately, they belonged to quite a small caiman, about this size. And he somehow picked him up and he handed him to me. And
Wow.
there I was with this little baby caiman crocodile in my hands, which was just just absolutely mind-boggling. It started wriggling quite frantically, so off it went. I threw it back into the water. Our guide decided that there were probably bigger crocodiles on the other side, on the further bank of the Amazon, that Amazon varies in width, and it has a huge number of tributaries. But so off we headed in the blackness across this vast amount of water. But the storm that had been brewing on the horizon suddenly picked up, and thunder and lightning came towards us very, very quickly. And within almost no time at all, we were probably about halfway over when it just was all over us. It just broke down, deluge pouring down, lightning all around us and thunder. The boat was filling up with water.
Wow.
And I saw a cup or a bowl floating around my feet there. I grabbed hold of it, and I was an experienced kayaker. I knew right away you had to bail the water out of the boat. And so I was doing that, and the guide was frantically paddling back to shore, but it was so black. We couldn't actually see the shoreline. We could make out the silhouette of the treetops where the lightning was flashing to illuminate the sky. So we're heading that way with no idea exactly where our camp was. And suddenly the guide starts shouting, "There's a crocodile chasing us! There's a crocodile chasing us!" I don't know what the others thought, but I thought, my good Lord, just paddle faster. I said, paddle faster, paddle faster. I'm bailing and he's paddling. And anyway, whether we outran the crocodile, whether he gave up, whether it was there at all to begin with, who knows? But we got back to shore. We didn't sink, and here I am. So all was well. But yeah, that's the most memorable experience, I guess. But equally, I mean, a less dramatic encounter was with a wild monkey on my shoulder. I'd been on another trip in a long canoe with other people. We stopped at a village and got out to look around. And I was eating an apple, which I brought along, my very own little apple. And suddenly there's this wild monkey on my shoulder, and he's trying to grab it from me. And well, it might seem selfish, but I did not want him to have it. It was my only apple. And he had plenty of his own fruit in the trees, We battled there for a while. I finally won. He conceded defeat. But in disgust, he peed on me. He peed on my shoulder and then hopped off and went back to his own fruit,
Oh my
A lot
goodness.
of fun that was. And of course, the pink dolphins that are there in the Amazon are just superb. And you see them in the river. I saw them traveling along on a chugging riverboat, and they're leaping about in the water, playing in the waves that the riverboat is creating, just shining, glimmering, gorgeous, gorgeous creatures. And on the banks that we passed, just superb jaguars, endangered they are, sunning themselves sprawled out there in the grass, and further up, some distance away from the jaguars. The capybaras, we saw lots of those. Capybaras are the world's largest rodent, like mice or rats, but they're soft, cuddly looking things. Do you imagine an average sized person, a capybara would come up to about their knee in height? A bit more, maybe a bit less, whatever, but very gentle, docile creatures. They just want to live peacefully and eat their succulent grass along the riverbank. But they have to keep a very careful eye out for the caimans in the water, because there's nothing a caiman likes better than a juicy a capybara for its dinner. So it's a bit of a dangerous existence, Yeah, but another memorable time was being on the river just in my canoe, very early morning, and serenity and silence and mist just floating around, not a sound. And I floated by on the shore, a little distance away, were a group of giant otters teaching their young, well, I assume that's what they were doing, teaching their young to build shelters from hollowed logs and vegetation on the riverbank, incredibly beautiful. It really was, But more storms in the jungle I experienced. And I wanted, at the same camp from which we'd left to search for the crocodiles, I wanted to go out alone in the jungle with just my Indian guide and sleep a couple of nights in the jungle. In the camp, we were in the jungle, but we had our hammocks strung up there, but we had a roof, and we had a back wall, no side walls or front wall, but we had a roof. In the jungle, of course, you weren't going to have that. Anyway, he was happy to take me. So off we went. And the first evening, I was having a bit of a wash by a running stream there, and he called me over. He said, come quick, bring your camera, come and see this. So I hurried over, and he'd found a tarantula hole, and he'd been wriggling his stick in it, coaxing the tarantula out, and the tarantula had leapt out and grabbed hold of the stick. And I was to take a photo of it. He said to me, come closer, they can only jump about a meter. I figured I was already a meter there, so I backed off a bit, and I took the photo and backed off again, and we went our separate ways. But the next night, having hiked for a day through the jungle, the next night we made camp again, and I was crouching down tending our fire, and there was a bit of a slope there, and I looked up to see a big, gigantic tarantula coming towards me. And I alerted my guide to his approach, and he said, oh, don't worry, she won't hurt you. He knew right away it was a female. He said, she won't hurt you, but it's strange that she's out this early. They don't normally come out looking for their food. They wait, in there by the door of their hole, waiting for food to pass by and pounce on them. He figured she must be looking for a new home, searching for a more lucrative piece of real estate where she was going to get a better food supply. But anyway, he approached her and he said to me, come closer, come and take a photo, always providing photo opportunities for me, So I did. I came closer. And as I got closer, she was so big, I could hear the leaves crunching under her feet. And yes, anyway, I stopped a little more than a meter away, and she stopped. She stopped as if to pose for the photo, here I am. And so I took the photo, and we went our separate ways. But I wondered afterwards, I thought, I wasn't frightened. And I used to have, a great fear of spiders, of arachnids, like a lot of people do. And I mean, not many people in the world actually like them. But I wasn't afraid of her. No, I couldn't understand why. And then later I thought, she was so big that really she was more like a small animal. I mean, she is an animal, but not a mammal. She's an arachnid. Like insects are insects. Arachnids have 8 legs. But I thought because she was so big, I don't know. I didn't feel afraid. Anyway, we went our own ways, and after we'd eaten dinner, we're in our hammocks, and another deluge came. The storm broke out, wind blowing the palms, beating each other this way and that, and the trees swaying here and there, and just no roof, no nothing, just in our hammocks in the downpour, which raged for about at least an hour, I would say, So it was, unfortunately, it's not cold there, but it did cool down a lot, being soaked through to the bone, as it were. Anyway, the next day we hiked back to our camp, and the day after that we went out in the boat again, fishing for piranhas. I wanted to catch a piranha. And my guide had a piece of string. He tied a piece of chicken to it, and we just, threw it over the edge of the boat and dangled it there. And lo and behold, I had a piranha on my string and hauled it up. I've done a bit of fishing in my time, and I've always taken my fish off the hook. No problem with that, but not this one. No, those teeth did not look good. So I left them to my more experienced guide to get the fish off the bait and out, the string out of its mouth. But anyway, we caught several, and we took them back to the camp to have for lunch. They're perfectly tasty, very good source of food, Yeah, beautiful, beautiful memories. And the birds, macaws, scarlet macaws, they're quite fascinating. On another river trip, they were screeching overhead, flying towards an orange-red cliff looming up from the shore. And they flew there, grabbed hold of it with their claws, and they're pecking away at the clay, eating the clay, because the clay has a very good supply of minerals that are essential to their diet. So they're having a very nice snack there. So that's why it's for inspiration. The Amazon, well, all rainforests, but the Amazon rainforest in particular. And, it's deforestation You wanted a question to ask me something?
Yeah, so yes, just to move on to the next question, okay? How did you do any other research for the story aside from those inspirational stories of your experiences in the Amazon? Did you do any other research for the
Well,
story?
I did. Yeah, yes, I did. When I came back and when I was actually writing, my book is a work of fantasy, but it is set in an accurately depicted geographical environment. It's all the animals, their habitats also are accurately depicted. The distances between towns, even the riverboat departure times were accurate, at least at the time of my research. All the rivers, the mountains, they're all existing, and I tried to make the distances at which they find themselves, apart from one another accurate. I researched Amazonian Indian lifestyles, how they lived and worked and so on. I researched Brazilian mythology and their mythological beings. So all those things are real and the mythological beings as existing as they can be, Yeah,
Excellent. That's really interesting.
yeah, yeah.
That we can look up Brazilian mythological beings. Very interesting. And so the next question is, how do you get inspirational ideas? What from those things we've been talking about or in other areas, how do you get your inspirational ideas?
Well, they come from things that are meaningful to me. I like to write about things that are meaningful to me, things that I love, from what my life's experiences and what I've learned about human nature, for instance, about activities that I've been involved in, like kayaking, caving, abseiling, hiking in the wild. Quite some years ago, I hiked around the Torres del Paine National Park around the massive glaciers there, absolutely mind-boggling experience. I've spent, time with different cultures, different languages. I speak several languages. I enjoy different cultures and wild places. And the more primitive the culture, the more exciting I find it. So yeah, that's what I like to write about. That's where I find inspiration. Mm.
That's excellent. Thank you. Very interesting. And moving on to the next question, which is how do you react to negative criticism?
Well, to negative criticism about my writing, I react the same way as I do to negative criticism about my painting. In other words, I welcome it. I'm grateful for it. I get to evaluate my work from a new perspective, a different perspective, a more objective perspective. We can't, as writers or painters or, we can't see our work objectively. We've created it, it's part of us. Even if you can leave it for 2 weeks, 2 months, whatever, come back to it. Yes, you see it from a slightly more objective light, but it's still part of you. You can never step completely outside of that. So I actively ask and look for criticism, and if it's negative, well, all the better because I have a chance to improve my work or reevaluate it and learn from it. So yeah, I welcome it very strongly.
That's a
Mm,
very positive approach to criticism, and I agree with you
mm,
wholeheartedly. It
mm,
can be difficult
mm,
to accept some of the criticism we get as writers, but being able to take out the positive and adapt and improve is a big bonus from negative criticism. We don't have to
mm,
take everything on board, but being able to react to it in the way you've described is very positive. Thank you for that. That's excellent.
mm,
So, on the next question, what advice would you give to aspiring authors?
mm. Well, yes, I'm not a greatly experienced author. This is the first book that I've had published, but if I were to give advice, I would give the same advice as was given to my favourite author of all time, an Australian writer, Alex Miller. And this advice was given to him by his dear friend and mentor. Alex Miller is an Australian author who's twice winner of the Miles Franklin Literary Award and a winner of at least 5 other major literary Australian awards. And I've actually come prepared for this question because I would like to read to you a short piece about this advice that was given to Max, to Alex Miller, I'm sorry, by his friend Max. And Alex writes about this advice. He says, earlier that weekend, Max had finished reading a draft of a novel I was writing and, on finishing it, had thrown it down on the table in disgust with, why don't you write about something you love? I loved Max and I recognized the enormous value and the truth of what he had said to me as a writer. That night, I wrote my imaginary reenactment of the story he had told me about the comrade who had first saved him, then betrayed him, just because he was a Jew. This happened during World War II. And Alex continues, I called the story Comrade Powell. In the morning, I gave it to him to read. He read, as he always read, as he listened to music, without saying a word and without giving away his feelings in his expression, which remained impassive. When he finished, he looked at me and I saw that he was moved. He said, you could have been there. It was the moment, Alex writes, when I first began to believe I could write. And from that moment on, I have always written about what I love. Now, I am in awe of Alex Miller's writing and of his intellect. As I read his work, the richness, the profound meaning, and the beauty of it really takes my breath away at moments. And every word is written with love. Every word is written with love. So my advice would be write about what you love and know your subject.
That's excellent, really excellent advice. I really appreciate that. I think anyone who's interested in writing to take that on board and to listen to that would be a great thing. So that's really, really good. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next question. Is there anything about your book you'd like to say that hasn't been mentioned yet?
Well, I would like to add something. Yes, while it's a book for teens and young adults, all the older adults who have so far read it, and there've been a number, have loved it, which makes me very happy, very happy, and it's also quite humbling, but it makes me happy. So you don't have to be a teen or a young adult to enjoy my book. If you've ever wondered what Amazonia is like, you can immerse yourself in this wondrous, stunningly beautiful, fantastic world by following my heroine as she forges her way through the jungle to save her world. You can shudder at the horrific evils that she meets and feel her heartache at the loss of her soulmate. Hopefully, you would empathize with her guilt that she suffers at the annihilation of her tribe and meet the animals struggling to survive. And you'll know the power of her mind. Really, if you like a challenge, if you identify with courage and perseverance and seek adventure, you'll find it in this gripping adventure story of endurance, determination, a beautiful love story, all in my book, called The Power of Her Mind. But also, I'd like to add to that, the strong focus on the rainforest being cut down. That's a very real thing. I don't know if I've got time to say more about that.
Yeah, do tell us a little bit more about that.
Do I?
Yeah.
Well, even even right now as we speak, there are thousands of trees being cut down in Amazonia in Brazil for a single purpose of building an 8-mile, 4-lane highway to provide easier access to a climate conference venue that is being held in Belém in November this year. Belém is on the mouth of the Amazon on the east coast of South America, of Brazil. And the conference is about saving the rainforest, about climate change and deforestation. And they're actually destroying the rainforest to build an easier venue to get there. I mean, it's mind-bogglingly stupid. Firstly, you don't need an easier venue. It doesn't have to be in that place. It can be somewhere else. But you can also get there in and out quite easily. You can fly in and out anytime. The Amazon rainforest is the biggest carbon sink in the world. That means that it absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, cleans up the atmosphere. Deforestation releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and also inhibits the planet's ability to absorb it back because there are less trees, and so to clean the air again. So deforestation reduces or contributes to huge quantities of greenhouse gas emissions, and to climate instability. And it's shocking. The rate of deforestation in the Amazonian rainforest is one of the most severe in the world and causing one of the biggest ecological crises of our time. And so I tried to bring attention to this crisis to the young people of the young generations, because I think they need to know how the older generation is destroying their world. I mean, how stupid do you need to be? Man is destroying the very environment on which his life depends. It's mind-bogglingly stupid. And to that end, the evil beings in my book, who are intent on destroying the rainforest, are portrayed as stupid and simple-minded to exemplify the fact that you do need to be like that to destroy your own environment,
I think that's
Yeah.
an inspirational message, and I very much appreciate that, and I hope that people can listen to that and try and take on board the dangers that we're facing as humans as we move forward in this century. And can you tell the watchers, listeners, the title of your book and where it's available, please?
Yeah, well, the title is The Power Within Her, and that's really the power of her mind. It's called The Power Within Her, and you can get it online on Amazon, Booktopia, and Barnes and Noble in both ebook and paperback versions. And you can also order it from any any bookshop anywhere. A paperback version from any bookshop. Just quote the ISBN number, which you'll find online. So it's widely available.
That's great. So it's The Power Within Her. And what a great
Yes,
title. What a great way to get across that idea that we have power within us. So thank you very much for this interview, and I hope everyone has enjoyed it. And for more, please go to your favorite bookshop or bookstore and buy The Power Within Her and spread the message. So thank you very much. That was great, Leanne. Thank you for
thank
that.
you. Thank you, Lawrence. Thank you for your time.